Very cool. Hello, Mary. We haven't been ignoring you. Just
No,
we're
that's
involved with the
fine.
kid stuff. So hello, Mary. Hello, 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 hello.
Good
I
morning.
always love and I love how people can just listen without needing to always participate. I just love that. It's a real power skill. It's a really really magical skill. So I love that. And Mary,
Yep.
since Beena's been asking this question, I'll ask it on Beena's behalf because Mike is for some reason a little cockeyed today. So Mary, what have you specifically chosen, and how have you chosen? What mood have you chosen today? Like when you woke up, what was the mood you chose to feel?
But my mood for today
Yeah, what have
was
you chosen? Not
joy, absolute joy, because I went for
uh,
a walk with my friends, and just we've got a beautiful little lake in the community. So we start out and we go around the lake, and then come back and walk around the perimeter of the community. So it's about maybe a mile and a half that we walk every morning. And it's just our time to catch up with one another if we haven't seen each other. So it's nice.
Brilliant.
It's a good little circle, and we always make each other laugh and have a good time.
Nice.
So
Right.
yeah, joy is my choice for today.
Excellent. And
I could feel it when you were talking about it. I could feel your joy, like the energy from it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is. I mean, that's the one thing I love about living in Florida is most of the time we just have beautiful weather. There are days that are rainy, but most of the time it's beautiful.
Brilliant.
It's always a warm rain.
Brilliant. All right.
Yeah, never too cold. I welcome a little cooler every now and then.
Yeah. It's nice and cool here where we're at now. All right. So Rachel is joined in the chat. Maybe she'll come join us on Zoom. On Facebook, she said. All right. So hello, Rachel. Hello. I'm assuming you can hear us. So that's brilliant. Rachel, our topic today is we are specifically looking at what we mean by will, capital W will, and impeccability. Impeccability in the context of the way of impeccability, and also will in the context of the way of impeccability. What we mean by those specifically, because it's when we say will or impeccability, it's of course capital W will and capital I impeccability. Our conceptions of these concepts usually extend the usual conceptuality of will. So I'll start off right with will itself. So one moment, let me just say hi, Rachel, and Star, so I'm here. Brilliant. All right. So in the context of will, it's connected to intent. So it's a subsection of intent. Now, yes, we might say, okay, I'm defining will by intent, and I can't do so without defining intent. But intent is a peculiar thing. It seems to me that almost inevitably intent doesn't require definition. It is one term that I've noticed that everyone seems to implicitly, directly understand what intent is. So in our context, we look at intent as a force, as out there in the universe, and just it's the underlying. If like the science will tell you, everything is energy, right? And when you break it down, the universe is actually energy, and the physical matter we see, it's just you could think of it as coagulated energy. But at root, at bottom, every single thing is energy. Now, in our conceptuality, we are saying that energy, some of it has an intent of its own. And intent is just this force that pervades, and you could say intent is another word just for life, right? Because life is an intent. All right, so it's not that critical how we conceive of intent, but it does help us to understand when it comes to will. Because while intent, and we can have an intent, and when we have an intent, we are putting out a desire or a want out into the world, and our intent is that we are in essence taking a wish, and we are saying we want this wish to implement. So when we intend something, we don't just wish it, we add an energy and we add a doing to it. Even though there's not a physical doing, like I'm actually building or constructing or typing something, it is an intent, is that persistence of saying, this is a wish I actually and really, or a desire that I actually and really and for real actually do want. Right? Because a lot of people wish for things, but they don't actually want those wishes. Like if you say, people say, oh, I wish I had a Ferrari. I said, do you want the high payments? Do you want to have the high insurance? Do you want to be stressing about people stealing it? Do you want to be worried about people scratching your beautiful? No, 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 never mind that. Okay, cancel. Right? So, so many oftentimes we have these, but an intent is something that somebody says, yes, I don't care. Yes, I want it. It doesn't matter all that stuff. Yes, I absolutely want it. I have to have it. So an intent is something that's real and important to us. But so intent is connected to what we want and what we desire. But intent is, like I was saying, it is something that's not where we can directly affect the outcome of our intent. So an intent, we could say, is an applied wish, right? Or a wish that has an energy and a commitment to it. So it's a committed wish or a committed desire that we are persistent, but we're putting it out in the world and we're saying, okay, I'm intending this to happen and I'll wait and see how it happens. Now we come to will. Will is when we take that same procedure, but it becomes personal and it becomes immediate and it becomes deliberate. So we could say will is when we are using our personal energy force to affect circumstances directly, immediately in our immediate interaction. So
Okay.
so this is slightly different because it's the localized version of intent. So we could say intent is like you're putting a spotlight, a floodlight out there, and you just kind of, spreading the light everywhere and where it connects. But will is when we are focusing that, and it's that beam of light is now coming from us, and it's this focused energy that we are now, with that focus of our will, we are affecting things directly. So will is more immediate in our short-term context. So that's really it. So will is just the personal, localized application of intent in our immediate surroundings. So it's kind of hard to use our will to affect something that we aren't directly connected to, but we can use our will to, if somebody is we involved with a person or a thing or a dog or a situation or whatever. It's that personal application of it. So this is the difference. Anybody have anything to add to that? Hello, Rachel, or any comments, any perspectives? Beena, sorry, since Beena asked me the question on will. Hello, Rachel. Hello, hello. Glad you could join us. So, Beena, you asked me specifically what I mean by will. Does that answer the question for you, Beena?
Oh yes. I was actually thinking about that. That when we say will, it is like a deliberate and not only deliberate but also focused and specific
Yes.
intent.
Yes. Yes.
And
And to elaborate just a little bit more, yeah. I mean, there's always
yes,
more, right? So,
yes,
so
yes,
everything impeccability is all about energy management. Both
yes.
intent and will are very particular mechanisms for utilizing our energy and managing it and utilizing it with purpose, right? So
Mm,
generally we
mm,
have energy and we exude energy. Okay, when we're feeling joy, the purpose of it is because it makes us feel good. But we don't
mm,
necessarily use our joy to acquire a result of some kind, to change things.
mm,
So intent and
mm,
will are how we use our energy to change things very specifically. Okay.
mm.
So now when we look at
So,
will in this case, we want to
mm,
say that intent is, as I was saying, it's kind of a general broadcast, and will
mm.
is a focus of our energy. We're taking that energy and we're focusing it into a tight focused beam, and we're doing it. Now, let me ask you all somebody. I want you to all to actually physically do this. I'm going to ask you to say, "This is me," and touch yourself when you say, "This is me." See, like if I do it, and see, I go, "This is me." Yeah, me, I, and I touch here. Now do it, please do
Okay.
it. All of you actually do that. So me, I, and touch yourself. Where do you touch yourself when you say me, I only see Lynnsey, but where
Your
do you
heart.
touch yourself, Lynnsey?
Got the heart.
When
This is me. I.
Okay, so yeah, your hand was a little low. So yours seems lower than mine. Mine is kind of, I think it's the thymus right there at this point. You know, if I go
This me.
my
Yes.
beard
Yes.
maybe in the way, yeah. So you see there, and you know, this would be the center of my chest. This is my breastbone, center of my chest. So I'm quite high up when I say me. I'm quite high up over here, right?
Yes. Same. Same with
Okay,
me. Same with
okay,
me.
okay. So now, same question. You just tweak it slightly. This is me, and then I say this is my will, and I'm touching my will point, and it's somewhere there in the region. You know, it's by my navel somewhere. Sometimes it's for some people it's above, some people below. I don't know. Maybe somebody says will up. Yeah, I've never known somebody to do that. But physically touch yourself on your will point where you say this is my will. Do you have a spot? I, you know, I can't zoom out on my camera. I, for me, is up here. My will is down there. Two different spots.
Oh,
Right.
see, I have one. Mine is the same for both. It's the area of my heart.
Your will comes from your heart. That's very interesting.
It's that whenever I think of myself or whenever I'm saying, you know, my will or any of that, it's always up in my heart. Right
Okay,
up there.
so when you say that I will make this happen. I'm willing it to happen. You will say you will will it from your heart. You won't will it from down there below by the navel somewhere in the midriff, in the abdomen. That's very interesting. That's very.
Or I'm going to clench my fist and there it comes from there.
That's
So,
very interesting. That's the first time I've ever known somebody to not touch themselves down there by the below the navel somewhere, or sometimes it's above the navel, but in that area of the abdomen. That's for most. That's typically where they identify with their will. Lynnsey, let me just go through everyone here. Lynnsey, where was it for you, more or less?
Right above my belly button.
Did you say above your belly button?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
Interesting. Yeah, it's typically above or below for most people. Yeah, mine is just kind of just above where my belt buckle sits. So if my belt's a little high, then my belt buckle actually covers that spot, which I do like. When my belt buckle covers the will spot, it kind of gives it a little bit of protect. Beena, how about for you?
I'm actually just trying to locate this, and by touching above my belly button and below my belly button, and just on my chest, and I feel that it is like it is in my center of the body, like kind of around the belly button.
Interesting. Yeah. And then Mary, how was it for you?
Me is definitely coming from my heart, and my will. That's coming from like right about my core center.
Yes. That's usually where it is. And Rachel, how about for you?
It's funny you should go on about manifestation of will and stuff, because it's within my spiritual practice. It's not a vocal point on my body. It's a manifestation that I can do. And when I visualize my will, for example, it's not something that comes from my body, but comes from me internally.
Yes.
So I don't see. So personally, for me, there is not a vocal point on my body where my will is.
oh, that's
My
beautiful.
will is me,
Right.
and I can manifest it.
Right. And that's what I was saying about intent and will. So, language, and we were talking earlier about, language is very haphazard and communication is very haphazard business. So in the way you are saying it, it sounds very similar to what I was saying with intent. There's a general overall broadcast of what when we look to implement something or apply something or change things or make stuff happen, particularly in the context of manifestation. When it's general coming from us in general overall, that would be intent. But when it's focused, when it's particular, then typically it comes out from that core. Typically, like in Sher's case, he says it's coming from her chest here, but typically it comes from somewhere in the abdomen, in our center, in our core, because then it is a localized focus. It's like we're taking this, light and we're just broadcasting it like a floodlight, but then we are focusing this beam with a will. So there's two different applications. So it sounded like, what you were saying is the application of intent. as opposed to a particular focused, sometimes people can even feel an energy come out there, and they can kind of feel the world through their will as well. So I'm just saying, it's just there's might be
Abs-
a language, interpretation or meaning, delineation, definition difference.
my spiritual practice,
Yes,
um,
yes.
and the manifestation of willpower and willpower itself, and concentration of willpower is all part of my spiritual practice.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's our willpower is what defines the spiritual practice.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm very much used to and in the mindset of
Right,
my willpower is something
right.
different for
Okay,
me,
so, oh, sorry, go ahead.
and it's not something that comes from a vocal point in my body like my lower abdomen or my
Yeah,
heart or my
yeah,
chest.
yeah, yeah. Are you saying vocal point or focal point?
Focal point.
With an F, focal. Okay, it just sounded like you're saying vocal point, and I was like just intrigued. So, okay, yeah,
I
no,
actually
so uh,
shared you when I was
yeah,
little.
it's okay. I was just going to ask you. So, when you did the exercise in terms of saying, this is me, and you touch the me point, do you have a
Oh
me
yeah,
point? Okay,
yeah.
okay, but
That's
all right.
in.
So
Sorry.
maybe it's just terminology. So if you said
Yeah.
when you said will, you said will was like more overall, and you would like say maybe overall like that, right? Now, what if you said this is me and this is my intent? Do you have an intent spot?
Well, when I do that gesture, when I say this is me, my hand kind of goes in between breasts, like
Uh-huh.
near the heart, almost right in the center.
Right.
And then when I do that, my hand actually comes away from my body and more like into like a grasp.
Wow. Interesting. Interesting.
Like
And
I'm gripping.
if you ask and if you touch yourself when you say this is my intent, where do you touch yourself then? If you do.
Well, I just kind of point off to the right.
Ah, interesting. Interesting. Yeah, it's different for everybody. That's very interesting. I was just checking in case it was just a matter of terminology that it sounded like maybe you just had flipped or reversed intent and will, but okay, it's just different. So, but I was using the way in which, I'm generally using this concept of will, which is a concentration of our personal energy which comes out of the body and typically in that point. Now, yes, it can come out any way, it doesn't really matter. It's just how we tend to think of it. And it's just we connect to that general focus of will coming from the abdomen like that, which so it just is that so in
Yes,
general, but there are exceptions and differences. So
I guess the
Beena, oh sorry, go ahead, Rachel. We'll get to Beena in a second.
okay. I guess the failure kind of is on my part because when I'm used to hearing will,
Uh-huh.
I'm used to it being in a certain context. Like
Mm.
my spiritual practice, for example, when people mention will, they mention something specific. So I have a few
Right,
trigger words that
right,
make me go
right.
think
Right.
about
So
something.
so again, I'm defining will because the question was, what do I mean by will? And this is I was just using that because inevitably when you do that exercise, people will touch their abdomen somewhere, and then they understand more what I mean when I'm saying will. Now, for most in general, that will isn't a particularly finely developed skill and ability, but through energy management, through attention management, through focus we can learn to develop that particular energy focus and use that point to take our general focus, general energy, and focus it more particularly and more potently. And it becomes a very, very real force that can affect change in a very particular way. Of course, it's associated with capital C queuing that we talk a lot. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to say that in this context, we are looking at the precise focused usage of our energy in a local and particular way. This is what I'm saying when I use say will. Now, it may or may not come via the abdomen or some other point in the body. It may come via your fingers. I imagine maybe for Donna, it would be that. Or who knows? It doesn't matter. The point is, will is the focused usage of our energy in general, of what we wish and what we desire. It's a very particular focused usage of intent, and just intent in general is when we put it out there and we kind of leave the particular resolution of our desire to the world, the universe, to life, to deity, to whatever. So intent is more general, will is focused and particular. Yes, Beena. Yes, Beena. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, Rachel.
Mm.
Okay. Rachel mentioned that not only will, but she said willpower, which
Yes.
is like, okay, really
Yes.
interesting for me.
Yes. It's the
Because
same.
we were
Yeah. Yeah. So
we
I
were
try. Yeah.
focusing on will and capital W, will, and now willpower, maybe
Yes.
just a capital W,
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
But as I understand from you, what you are explaining
Me
about
or
will,
Rachel?
yes, no, you, Sil,
Ah,
and that will is more personal, is
yes.
more specific,
Yeah.
more personal, and also
Local.
it involves, yes, local, and it also involves like I can set my intent just in my thoughts and just in my
Yes.
just intent, like my feelings. But when
Yes.
it comes to will, it is more deliberate, and
Yes.
it is like something more specific with
Focused.
verbs, with all the
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
verbal and all with all senses involved.
Yeah.
More senses
Yeah.
are involved in
Right.
that, and
Uh,
and my physical being is also involved. Yes, with intent also,
yes.
but when it comes to intent, it is not actually a deliberate effort or doing involved in that
Correct.
to incorporate senses, other
Yeah.
senses with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the
But
particular
in
sense, you
yes,
say willpower. Now I'm using will and
yes,
willpower. It's somewhat the same thing as the way I'm using it. It's essentially the same thing, right? So to say willpower, it's somewhat redundant, really. I guess we have other kinds of power. I guess we have emotional power, mental power. But yes, will is a particular application of our energy, which is power. And energy just without focus is just loose and rough. What makes energy into power is when we can deliberately use that energy. So will is taking our physical energy, our energy of being, you can say our spirit energy, our emotion, any kind of energy we have, and we are translating it into how it can actually directly affect and change things in our immediate environment. So yeah, so will is focused, deliberate usage of energy. I like that it's snowing inside your house there, Lynnsey. That's uh, I don't know what you're doing, but it looks like it's snowing inside the house, or you've got little magical points of
It's a
light or
disco
something.
ball.
Oh, you put the disco ball on. Wow, wow,
I
wow,
just put it in the window so it makes it, when you spin it in
wow.
the
Oh,
morning, it looks like you're in
it's
a
the
fish tank.
sunlight coming off the disco ball. Wow,
Yeah, it's just the sun hitting it.
wow, wow. Interesting, interesting, interesting.
And I have a painting on my
Yes.
ceiling.
All right. So
it looks
does that
beautiful.
Beena, let me just, since you asked the question, does that clear up for you what we're meaning by will?
Oh yes, now it is.
Right.
Now
And
it
it
is.
is a skill that we can learn. So when we are using a will, it is the direct feeling of feeling power or energy, our energy itself, but it is concentrated, focused energy. And we are feeling a different kind of energy to when we are feeling energetic, for instance, or enthusiastic or joyful or loving or whatever. This will is a very different type of an energy, which if you ask people and you do research, and when they've been in extreme situations, for instance, say for instance, a mother and the child, and the big rock has fallen on the mile, and she's willing to get it off, and suddenly she has this extra energy, or she's willing help to come. There's a different type of an energy. So many people who've been in extreme or emergency situations where they've used their will tell you and share that, oh, it was a very different feeling, and they kind of say, well, I didn't quite think about it, I just willed it and it happened. And it's like, okay, so it's not something that they think of it in a regular basis, but they know that they have utilized it and can utilize it, but they don't do so regularly. So it's just really interesting. It's one of those things that most sort of know is there and do understand, um, but they don't necessarily take it to extend it and extend that skill. Yeah, like in most things, we have skills, but you don't work on them, we don't practice, we don't take them to the to a full depth of application.
I was
It's
gonna
very
say,
interesting.
for me, I was just kind of wondering when you said that it's a skill that can be practiced. I suppose it can be, but for me, it's always just been instinctual.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
I mean,
exactly,
far back as I remember,
exactly.
it's always been.
Say that last part again, Sher. We lost you. We didn't hear you.
There's a lot of feedback on your end.
Yeah.
For me, it's just always been very instinctual.
Mm.
Just a strong will to keep pushing through, to persist, to survive.
Right. Right.
To just say that some days when I just lost that momentarily, and then something would come back in me and say, "No, you're not going to make that choice. You're going to do it this way," and keep going. So
Right.
that's why I don't know. Like I said, for me, it's always it just the heart for me is the core of my whole being, even though because I see my soul in my heart.
Mm. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely a skill that we can learn and acquire. Much like people say, "Well, I can talk," but you know, to talk and be articulate and to elucidate and to be clear and to be concise and to be organized in our own head and to mean what we say. Even we don't have to have a huge vocabulary. We don't have to be eloquent or anything like that, but to actually just communicate clearly. It's a skill that for most we have to actually learn and apply and acquire. So the same thing with will. Yes, Beena.
Oh, I have a lot of questions, so
Please
I
ask
hope.
away. We love questions. We love questions. Love questions.
Okay, as Shia mentioned that it is for her it is more instinctual rather than just having a skill.
Or at least so
And
far, right? Does
yes, so far. But before going to this point, I want to like explain it that why I asked this question. I had two reasons. First, it was like I had no clear idea what is will, so that's why I asked him that okay, just explain it. What is will and what is intent? This was the basic reason. And also, even when you have some idea about things and we are using it, we are practicing, we are implementing it, but having a clear uh, awareness of any
conception?
idea, any conception, it leverages us to implement it with more definition, with more clarity,
Yes.
and with, to get more results also. So
Yes.
that's why it might seems like a very small topic. Yes, for you guys it might be, but for me it was really huge because
Yes.
I want to bring this into my awareness where I can have a clear,
Yes.
focused
Yes.
implementation of this. I can do that.
Yes.
And sure, I feel that you're right that we feel sometimes that things are just instinctual. I don't know how I'm just struggling with the pronunciation, but I
Instinctual. Yeah.
know what yes, instinctual. But thank you. But it is actually, this is how our mind, our body, our heart, our senses works and respond. So it is like it is a mechanism behind that. But we feel that it is just a random instinct and we react or we respond. But it is not in our consciousness. But yes, our mind actually do calculate all these things
Yes.
and respond accordingly.
And you're touching on the heart of what it is that we are about, right? And that is to shift from living a just willy-nilly random life and just according to whatever comes our way and just according to forces outside of us, to living deliberately. We know a lot of stuff. We do a lot of stuff. We do it automatically. We do it instinctually. We do it by reaction, by just, pressure, we respond. But when we start to do things deliberately, this is when we shift from just stuff being more or less there and vague and unclear to becoming clear, precise. And in that deliberation, we take what we've done by default, we focus it, we fine tune it, we now accentuate it, and those things become power. We start to live with power. Right? So to have,
Yeah.
like you were saying, you've done this instinctually. Yes, to do so deliberately though, Wow, this changes
It's,
everything because it's now
uh,
your command, not as a function of circumstances.
so if I'm getting this correctly in my head, really, it's the difference between um, survival instinct and a focused, deliberate will to get
evolve.
what you, using your energy to
Yes.
get where you want to be,
Yes.
versus just simple survival instinct,
Exactly.
which
Exactly.
we all have. We all
Exactly.
have that survival instinct. I mean, it's what kept me going for 2.5 years when Paul was sick.
Yes.
It was just pure survival instinct that kept my will to just keep on going and stay positive and keep him happy.
Exactly.
So that's, if I'm hearing this correctly, that's
Yes.
what it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And also, you touch on a really potent point. So, what would be the ultimate survival? Wouldn't that be evolution?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Soul
So we are
evolution.
shifting from merely surviving to saying, oh, we are going to deliberately evolve. Very big difference between just, your evolution comes haphazardly and more or less. We are saying we are going to be ultimate survivalists because we are going to be deliberately evolving ourselves. This is a massive shift in everything. Yes?
Yeah. Deliberately focused about it.
Deliberately focused, applied, intended, structured, clear, organized, efficient, sensible, everything that the whole way of impeccability is all about deliberate evolution. And it's
Yep.
very, very transformative. It's really massive.
Great. Good. I'm glad I understood that right.
Yeah, you did. And what you
Yeah.
just did, Mary, is this check. It's a takeaway where you are checking your understanding. This is
Yeah.
part of the way of impeccable. It's part of it. We'll do another session on the takeaway, the philosophy of takeaway, because it is part of it. If we do not check our understanding, how do we possibly can know that what we have understood is actually so? We may believe we've understood. Unless we check it, we cannot be sure.
Yeah.
Very important to check it. So I love that. It's absolutely essential to check our understanding. Even, and we, in this particular group here, we want to make sure to say that, I'm going to check, even if it's really obvious. I don't care. I need to check because I need that impeccability of certainty to be sure that what I believe is my understanding, what I assume to be my understanding is actually so. So now, the magic of what you've done is that somebody else may have the similar perception to yours. Your checking gives them the confirmation, so they don't have to duplicate. So this is the magic of somebody checking, and okay, it assists everybody else. Maybe they don't have to do the whole thing, like you said, but this one particular little point, it's really huge. It's really huge. All right, so I want to just touch on also, and we'll come back to this topic because topics of this nature that are really deep, that have a huge moreness, that capital M moreness to them. Yes, we think, we want to have a Zoom and we want to touch on it and we want to delineate it, we want to elucidate it, articulate it, and we do. However, because they are such consequential and connected topics, will connects to intent. They're part of the same spectrum. They connect to, like we just said now, the liberation, survival, evolution, our intent in life. It connects to everything. So typically on these topics, it's good to let them simmer and assimilate and incorporate and come back to them later, which is why in our conversation, typically things will come back again. And when they come back next time, we have more to add. We can say, my I've been thinking about it, I've been feeling it, and now we can elaborate then more. So inevitably, what I'm trying to say is, when we do these delineation sessions, we aren't always going to come to a finishing point because there's never really an end because everything is connected to everything else. So it always feels like, there's more because there always is more. So I want to shift on to impeccability. Unless somebody has something else they want to add, a takeaway, a question, any point, anything to say more on Will specifically. Lynnsey, you good?
I'm good.
Sure.
Yep.
Rachel?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. So before I say what I feel impeccability is, And you know, just from the way of impeccability, this is the core concept that everything revolves around. So before I delineate more precisely, what we, not just we, but we in general here mean by impeccability, I'm keen to hear you guys what your perception is on impeccability. So I'll start with you, Sher. Just random.
Oh,
Okay. All
thank
right.
you.
You don't have to, but you know, it is sometimes it's good to be leveraged by surprise, because that's actually what I want to hear. And in this context, I'm not asking you to give an accurate or a correct answer, because there is no such thing. So
Um,
I'm actually looking to hear the first thing that pops into your mind.
Goodness is the first thing that comes to my mind. I mean,
Interesting.
that's how I see impeccability, is just an overall feeling of goodness, and then I take that goodness and I apply it out towards everything that I do, with just strong good intent. And how do you describe good?
Exactly. Okay, that's very interesting. So, Mary, how about you? What does impeccability mean to you?
It means to be the best possible me that I know how to in any given moment in time.
Wow. Wow.
I like that.
Cool. Rachel, how about you?
To live a stress-free life.
Ah, interesting.
Girl.
Interesting. Interesting. Lynnsey?
For me, it's about trust, I guess. Like
Interesting.
trusting myself and other people, like in ways.
Interesting.
And
Interesting. Interesting.
Mm.
Interesting. Did Beena drop off? I think.
so the truth, I guess,
Oh,
trust
I'm
and
here.
truth.
Oh yeah. Okay. Beena. All right. So what's for you? I mean, we've discussed this in detail. So go into it. Not just your first thought, but you know, feel free to go into as much detail as you like, or not. Either way.
Okay, from the beginning and till now, this was the first thought, and this is the thought till now for me, that impeccability is paying due respect to circumstances, situations, people, your emotions, feelings, and thoughts, and ideas. So,
Brilliant.
and life and soul and mind, and you can extend it as much as you want. When it comes to, and when I'm saying that paying due respect, it doesn't mean to just be all good, be all positive, and be all joyful, cheerful all the time, and all these things. No, it is just being appropriate. Like now, because my vocabulary is more of and from way of impeccability, so I'm using
Use
these
it.
words.
Use it. All right.
Yes.
So Beena, would you say due respect in the context when you
Yes.
said it's not always in the usual way? For instance,
Yes.
if let's say there's a narcissist, I'm involved with a narcissist, and they're going on about how wonderful and how fantastic they are, and they just blah blah bullshit and all this nonsense. Would me giving due respect to their communications, their energy, what they're doing, would, if I was to be appropriately intolerant of their nonsense, would that be me giving due respect to the circumstance?
Because the
The way you
emphasis
mean
is
it?
on due. Yes,
Ah,
because the emphasis is on due. It
right,
is not like giving respect. No, not
correct,
unconditional.
right,
It
correct,
is like due, and
right,
due means what they
right,
deserve, what they earned.
right,
And so
right,
this is what it
right.
is.
So the need to be intolerant of their gross, the intolerance of their inconsideration of,
Because you are paying due respect to yourself and your energy.
and the overall, the greater picture, the overview perspective.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes.
So
Okay.
let me start off with a different definition than I usually say with impeccability.
Mhm.
Impeccability is, and there's many definitions. So one of the applications of impeccability is scrupulousness and thoroughness and diligence and carefulness and not leaving things to chance and making every effort that we can in order to affect the world, to achieve our objectives, to do what is appropriate, to do what is necessary, to do what is sensible. So you could say impeccability is not being crappy. Very simple way to say it, right? Very simple way. Very simple way. Okay. So we go a little bit deeper into this to connect back to Mary and Sher's and Rachel's and connectivity, and also yours, to connect to it in a deeper way. We're going to make this in a reverse connection. So first of all, it is that not being crappy and doing our part, so that somebody can't say, well, you're complaining, and then it's like, oh, how come? What the hell are you complaining about? Did you make every effort that you could? Were you thorough? Were you scrupulous? Were you diligent? Did you even make any effort? Oh, well, no, I didn't. Well, then you weren't impeccable, and then you can't. Then your complaints have no merit, right? Well, complaints in general have no merit, but anyway. So that's the main point: is to do what is required of us, and not to kind of not do that. So impeccability is that, doing what is required and actually doing it, right? So that we don't have any comeback, and we can't say, well, I'm just I didn't do what I needed to do, and now it's like things aren't working. Oh, no, we're going to do our part. Okay. So scrupulousness, diligence, thoroughness, etc. Then we can say, furthermore, we take this to a little different level when it comes to impeccability. We are saying impeccability is not about being right all the time. Some people have this misunderstanding. They think, oh, if you're impeccable, you're always right. No, no, no. That's an ego nonsense thing. You can be utterly impeccable and be completely mistaken, because it is as far as you know that is the issue. And you've done all your homework, you've done all your research, and even then we can be wrong. So it's just part of the deal. But it's not about being wrong or right. Impeccability, it is about doing according to your conscience what you feel is right. This is very important, to act according to your conscience always, to never, ever transgress against your conscience. Never, never, ever, ever, ever. This is being impeccable, right? So it's got nothing to do with being right, but it is about doing what is right according to you. Different usage of the word right, right? So if my conscience is clear, and I've done all my research and my homework and thorough, and yet I do something and I am acting impeccably because according to me this is the right thing to do at that moment, and it turns out to be a mistake supposedly. If we pay attention, inevitably mistakes impeccably made turn out to be fortuitous occurrences and events, or fortuitous mistakes if you want, and they lead us into the unknown. So there's a deeper mechanism involved here, but that's a separate thing. That's kind of an addition. It's just a consequence of impeccability. The point I want to make is that impeccability, it's not just being thorough and scrupulous and diligent. Yes, it is about the profound goodness, right? Why is it about that profound goodness? Because it is acting according to your conscience and not ever transgressing your conscience. This is absolutely imperative. Whenever we do transgress and we step over that line and we do what we know we shouldn't do. I don't know if you've ever done this in your lives. I've only, for me personally, just once, and it was a very trivial thing. But I've seen people when they do it, they always severely regret that, and it always has profound negative consequences. So impeccability is always to be in that attunement with yourself, with your conscience. This is a super critical point, and it brings up the next definition. Impeccability, if you want a nice overview, abstract definition, it is the best use of our energy. To transgress against your conscience, it is a ridiculously horrible waste of energy and a very poor usage of energy, right? And you are misapplying your energy. And yes, you might think you're going to get a short-term benefit, but in the longer term, of course, you're going to get screwed. The same thing with being not being thorough, not being diligent, not being uh, um, um, attentive, not being efficient. All of these things, it is about short-term versus longer-term consequence. So we want to use our energy in the overall, in the best possible way, so that we get short-term, medium-term, long-term, and universal benefit from the usage of our energy. So this is what we are doing. And like when we were talking about Mary, when you were saying in survive and to evolve, to just survive, that's a poor usage of your energy, because you can survive from day to day, but you're not paying attention to your evolution. And of course, yes, you might succeed, but if the circumstance changes radically and you haven't evolved where you can adapt and be flexible and be fluid, well, then you're going to be screwed. It's, for instance, there was this a particular drought that affected the ground, just the like the grasses and stuff, right? And then many of the grazers that graze on the ground only, they died. Why? Because they weren't able to simply lift their head up and eat the leaves on the bushes. This happens fairly regularly in nature, by the way. Right. So just that simple bit of flexibility and adaptability, they couldn't do. They are very specific in their survival. So this is why when we focus on survival only, we can get into niche bubbles and we can get screwed very easily. We need to have that overview. So this is impeccability, to say, hey, we are using our energy to best effect, to make ourselves into beings of flexibility, beings of adaptability, beings of fluidity, beings that are capable of being appropriate in any circumstance. And to that end, we direct our impeccability towards the generation of awareness, or to understanding, to discernment, and all of the other topics in our dictionary of power. All those conceptions, sobriety, sensibility, patience, all of these skills of character, of ability, of being, these are skills that enable us to be appropriate in any circumstance. And this is what impeccability is all about. So you could say impeccability is a super sensibility, because we are in a sobriety, because we are using our energy in the best possible way. And particularly when it comes to being thorough and scrupulous and diligent, and also to never go against our personal conscience. Now, we also need to understand that we are typically in a bubble of awareness and understanding. What we know is limited, so we have to be open to that. So that's why we're continually learning and growing and expanding our awareness, expanding our understanding. And we never limited to say, what I know, this is it, and I'm happy now. Yeah, it may be so, but it's good in the context. So impeccability is the core that ties everything together. Without impeccability, we tend to be lost. Yes, Mary.
Yeah. When I was living on that survival instinct, I eventually crashed and burned.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I did, I was actually as physically sick as I have ever been in my entire life.
Yes.
I ended up with a massive internal infection and almost died. I ended up in the hospital and had to have my whole gallbladder was like gangrene.
Wow.
Hey, that happened to me too.
And I was completely unaware of it. I was cleaning out my garage, getting rid of my husband's tools and lots of crap that was out there. And I thought I had pulled a muscle. And I said, I guess I'm done for the day. I'm just going to go inside. I'm going to go have something to eat. I had something to eat. I went to bed and I woke up at midnight and I started to vomit up bile.
Wow.
And I vomited from midnight until 12 o'clock the next day. So 12 hours, like nonstop. I was completely dehydrated, had this massive infection, temperature of like 103. And I crawled out of my bathroom to my couch, grabbed my phone, and called my sister to come pick me up. And I just said, you need to take me to the hospital. I knew that there was something wrong. And she took me to the hospital and they operated on me like the following day because they had to just hook me up with an IV with antibiotics for 24 hours before they could even touch me. Wow. The infection was so bad. So, it was all that I say now. I can look back and say I was keeping all of that in me and it was just poisoning my body.
Inappropriate usage of your energy.
Yeah, completely. Like I didn't know it when it happened, but like I say, I can look back at it now and say, if had I been using my energy right, that never would have happened to me because I always eat healthy and take care of myself. So it was just I was neglecting myself to take care of my husband for so long.
Yeah. And this is where we have to be very impeccable. Donna's been making a focus on loving oneself. Yes, we get consumed in the focus of assisting others and helping others, but hey, we are part of the world. We want to make the world a better place, but we too, us as individuals, we are a part of the world. If we care for the world, we have to also care for ourselves because we are too a part of that. It's no good taking care of everything else. We don't care of ourselves because then we just contaminate and corrupt the world and we mess it up because we are not in our full space. So the best way in which we can actually make a difference in the world is to be at our best. In other words, to be impeccable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm keen to hear from Lynnsey. I kind of see a focused, like almost a question over there. So I like seeing people because I can see more than I can hear. So
No, I just find it interesting because I had my gallbladder removed in March, but I had been sick since I was in high school, and no one's been able to pinpoint what it was. So I had like every type of gallbladder attack you could imagine, but no one ever knew exactly what it was that was going on because everything always tested fine. So I just started going to alternative routes to get myself well. But I ended up having to get my gallbladder removed, and since then I felt 100 times better.
Wow.
And it was the same kind of circumstances. It was making me like toxic, my body toxic, because my gallbladder was like twice as big as it should have been.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and probably leaking into your body,
exactly,
the toxins that come out of your gallbladder.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And if we look at this on a figurative basis, you know, a gall is a very bitter, unpleasant, you know, it's a very yuck, you know, a toxic thing. In nastiness, you could say gall, you know, that's in English, when you say I'm galled, you know, the word gall, it implies kind of a nastiness and an outrageousness as well, almost like a yuckness, right? So it's very interesting in this case that, you know, it seems like you guys had internalized much from a spiritual, you know, energy, from perception of the world, that nastiness, that yuckiness, and that gallingness, that outrageousness, that craziness, as it were, and it was internalized, and so it was energy that wasn't appropriately and impeccably dealt with. So I'm just guessing that there are probably many instances where the stuff went inside, where you didn't like act on it, deal with it, you know, connect to it, you know, put it more out into the open, which may have been a bit awkward or difficult, and this now just the internalization led to the build-up. Does that? Okay, because that's typically what happens. You know, again, when we start to look at this. Sorry, Mary. It's impeccability is best use of energy. And when we start to look at the entirety of everything that we are talking about, it is all about energy management in all of its variations. Everything begins with energy management and also ends with energy management. So it's not just managing our physical energy, like getting enough sleep, not wasting it on things like irritation and annoyance and impatience and stuff like that, to plug the drainage points, you know, stress and worry and stuff like that. Not only to plug those, but also once we now have kind of solidified ourselves and we are plugging that and we are saying, hey, now I've got more energy. What do I do with that energy specifically? Now we get to will and intent. So there's this whole spectrum of dealing with energy. But also we need to understand that we need to appropriately deal with energy. We can't take negativity and just internalize it. And that's going to lead to big problems. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know, I've said this before. I know I have, that I emotionally shut down when Paul got sick. You know, so I was completely neglecting myself in every single way possible.
Exactly. Inappropriate energy management.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and I didn't think about it that way then. Yes. You know, I was only thinking about taking care of him. I wasn't, because he would keep saying, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me."
Which was when we look at it from a point of impeccability, you weren't being absolutely impeccable right then, because in that question you would have said, well, not really, you know, I need to kind of pay attention to me too, you know, stuff like that. You would have dealt with things a little differently, you know, if impeccability had been part of your conception. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I would have, but I, you know, I was more concerned about that he was in so much denial about what was happening with him.
Yeah.
I had to take that on, and then I in turn just internalized it all. I didn't actually deal with it appropriately.
Yes.
I dealt with it in a way that was efficient to get things done.
Yeah. However, Mary, you are where you are today. And that is the thing to celebrate. Mary today,
you know what?
Mary's journey, you know, from a more overview perspective, I don't know, whatever word we wish to use, soul, God, the universe, our soul, whatever. It doesn't really care for the local, the details. Our lifetime is a blip in terms of infinity. So it's the end point, us learning. This is what's important. Us coming to
Right.
awareness, us coming to joy, us coming to understanding. This is the key point. And the Mary that is today, this is something to celebrate. Yes, Mary?
I wouldn't be where I am today if all of that didn't happen.
Exactly. And now we get to the profound capital A appreciation. That is something special. That is really, and the same for you, sir, right?
What was your question? I'm sorry.
I'm just saying all of Mary's experiences, travails, you might want to call it. They've led Mary to this point of profound appreciation, not just of the world, but of self. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And her as Mary's appreciating herself as part of the magic of the world. She enjoys life, she enjoys world, and she's enjoying being herself. She's enjoying herself. She's self-loving, self-appreciating. And you've had the same thing through your various experiences. Yes, at the time they were difficult and problematic and stressful and unpleasant. But now they have led you to this profound point of being and place in life where you are just like, whoa, man, I'm happy to be alive. I'm happy to be Sher. Yes?
Yeah.
Very profound. Very profound. I didn't hear what you said, Sher, but I'm just hearing yes there.
Yes, I said yes. No, I'm sorry. I was kind of trying to keep track of the question that I had. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
No, but you're right. Absolutely. Mary is, she's definitely, I guess I love seeing everything that she's been, I guess, just expressing.
Yes.
And the thing she talks about the joy of just being at this point. So
exactly. And also particularly in the context of appreciating how her circumstances and situations in the past have leveraged her to be the Mary of now. And in your case also, you're right about it very particularly. The same, the Sher of then has become, you've leveraged it through awareness, through impeccability, through appropriateness, into the magic of the Sher of now. Very special, very big deal.
Yes.
I'm keen to hear from Rachel. I'm sorry, go ahead, Sher, go ahead.
No, I just said sometimes I battle with the whole, what you were talking about best use of energy, and then applying will to that versus your conscience.
Yes, never. Impeccability is never, ever, ever transgressing against your conscience. Never. There's a line where we have that deep feeling that, no, this is just wrong. This is just wrong. To never do it, no matter how expedient it may seem to be. This is impeccability. Never ever to cross that line, no matter what. And this is not necessarily a moral thing. I mean, sometimes we like, okay, you're desperate and you need to steal something or whatever. There's instances where we break the laws or whatever. It's not about this kind of right or wrong morality. This is about my conscience. If I am conscious and free in my conscience, and I say, well, I need to take this thing, and I know it belongs to somebody else. Okay, well, it's the appropriate thing to do in a circumstance, and I'm completely free and clear in my conscience. Well, then I'll take it, and it's not a problem because it's needed, it's necessary, and the appropriateness is what led to that. It's not something I would generally do, but in a while, I haven't been in that circumstance, but just saying, but again. So it's not about conventional mores and moralities and laws. No, our conscience is according to the particularness and the appropriateness of the circumstance and how we feel at the time. Later, we may change and those things may shift, but nonetheless, it is never to cross that line of what we feel and know to be wrong to ourselves, not to anybody else, to ourselves. This is impeccability, it's to ourselves. Very important.
Yeah, I always listen to that little voice in my head.
Exactly. And your heart, yes.
Yeah, the one that says to me, no, you really don't want to do that, or go ahead.
Right. And that little voice is not just in our heart and our head, it's also in our butt, and it's in our feet, and it's in our arms, and it's in all of our bodies. So yeah. I'm just saying, sometimes it speaks from the butt or from other places too. So just to say, pay attention. That little voice is everywhere. It's very important. But yeah. It's a big deal, big deal.
You have, I mean, the way I have always envisioned it is that there's another form of will as well, and maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe that other little part is your ego saying, I really don't want to do this, because I just feel like I don't want to do it. But then your conscience.
Oh, you bring up a fabulous point.
Then your conscience tells you, but you know, this is you. This is who you are.
Exactly. Right. So you've. Sorry, Sean. Sorry, I keep thinking you're done, and then there's more. Sorry, finish up. Sorry.
Oh, so for example, you know, you're in a situation, and you know what you really want to do, what you ought to do, but then you've got that other little part of saying, but I don't want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So now when we connect, you connecting all of these things all together, which is fabulous. When we connect will and intent and ego and impeccability, we now, and of course with awareness too, we do realize that, and conscience, that was the other point you connected. Ego has its own deals, and ego is really just a construct, a program that is constructed through society, through convention, through assumption, through just assimilation and all this nonsense. So yes, when we say what does my ego want, and it's the little voice of the world, as it were, and this little bullshit construct inside us, that yes, ego can be connected to a realness in us also. It's not always negative, but just in general. But also and to say that when we look at ego versus conscience, there's a very big difference to understand who we are. Because when I say, yes, my ego wants something, but it goes against my conscience, no, sorry. My conscience is my real me, my ego is just bullshit me. Now, if we can get our ego to be in alignment with our conscience, now we have some real power. Then ego becomes this bullshitty, narcissistic, self-indulgent, over-exaggerating, aspect that's involved with status and dominance and superiority and crap like that. Then ego becomes a force of the expression of the fullness of ourselves. So let me just say hello to Stephanie. She asks, Stephanie, we are talking about two topics in particular: will and impeccability, and what they mean. So that's a very powerful topic. So I am absolutely thrilled that you are here, Stephanie. Stephanie is just I don't know. Stephanie is an anomaly in the world. One of those magical people. So hopefully we'll get Stephanie to come join us at some point. But many wonderful conversations with Stephanie. So I'm really thrilled to see you here, Stephanie. So when we now say the ego has its own will, and we need to pay attention to that. But typically the ego does not have a conscience. And this is what we see in narcissism. The ego has run away with itself. And if you really observe narcissists, and particularly the ones that we talk about, the BMNs, bullshit manipulated narcissists, you'll see they have no conscience whatsoever. It's just to satisfy their objective. They're completely conscienceless. And this is what separates them. And this is why you see the difference of impeccability. We see the disaster that is the narcissist when they live in that consciousness and they just say they do whatever is just expedient in the moment, regardless of how much it transgresses their conscience. They've so crossed that line that there is no more line. And this leads to a terrible life. It never works. They suffer, and everything is a problem. No matter how much it may seem to the contrary, they live utterly miserable lives. So this is a very, very powerful way. So I really thank you for bringing that concept of ego into it. And again, too, the ego thinks that it is in charge of its world, but the ego is a bubble mindset. So impeccability says, hey, we don't want to be consumed in bubble mindsets, to become involved in emotions. We want to be a bit broader. So through impeccability and through that connection to thoroughness and scrupulousness and diligence, through being careful, through being efficient, through being effective, through being aware, because we want to ask ourselves as part of my impeccability, okay, as far as I know, this is okay. But can I maybe extend my awareness? Is there more to know? Can I investigate further? So impeccability insists that we extend, enhance, and develop our awareness. So impeccability is a huge thing. But when we connect it to this and we're saying, hey, we're going past the ego, we start to connect to the real self that actually knows, but it knows in a in a way that it doesn't know it clearly and deliberately. So this is our task, is to bring that fullness of our conscience, that sense of knowing what is sensible, what isn't. Yeah. And we want to bring this into conscious, deliberate awareness. And we can use our will in it to actually activate that fullness of ourselves. So there's everything in the end, it all ties together. I don't have my magical background because I don't have a green screen now, but let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, I don't have that picture on my laptop. It's on my other computer. I had this magical background for the, like Lynnsey, you haven't seen it, the others have, and it's all these little kind of squares, and they connected and they focus all in on a black background like space. And this white center light dot, but it shows, and it's like 3Ds, like layered, like there's these. So everything is connected. Everything is connected. But when we get to the center, everything means the same in its ultimate meaning. Awareness is the same as impeccability, is the same as attunement, is the same as appropriateness, is the same as will, is the same as intent, is the same as goodness. Everything in its ultimate meaning, it pretty much means the same thing. So we like that connectivity. It's just different paths to coming to that super clear, overall focused awareness and understanding. And it's very empowering, very, very empowering.
Yeah, otherwise we're living a lie.
Exactly, and that we cannot do. This is why
I think that's why I said truth. It means truth to myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
truth to myself, not necessarily truth to anybody else, but myself.
Precisely.
Right.
Acting according to what is right, according to you, your conscience, your truth. Now, of course, there are many people who believe all sorts of nonsense and they say, yeah, but this is my truth. Now, yes, fair enough, it can be your truth. But if we are impeccable, we need to say, on what is my truth founded? And this is why impeccability is also connected to thoroughness and scrupulousness, particularly scrupulousness and diligence. So we need to be scrupulous when we do have our beliefs, for instance, to say, on what is my belief based? Is it just something I've sucked out of the air and I'm believing it because it's convenient and I want to? Or is there some merit to this belief? Now, some beliefs are self-evident, like goodness. It's a self-evident sensibility, no belief required. Same thing with patience, a self-evident sensibility, no belief required. And this is what we tend to focus on in the way of impeccability. Things which have some self-evident sensibility to them, which don't require belief. Because then our truths aren't based on something, our personal truths aren't based on belief in some way or another. Because belief is, by definition, not a fact. So belief is a bit shaky, right? We might believe it to be a fact, but it's still not a proven thing. Whereas self-evident sensibilities, they don't require any belief. No need for belief. There's no need to believe in patience. It just is self-evidently, obviously useful. It's like, well, duh, right? Whereas believing in the ancient aliens, well, that's a whole different story altogether, So, it may be my truth, but I'm aware that it's something that's founded on belief, and as such, it goes into a different category. And my impeccability says I cannot treat this as something that is concrete, that is solid, that I can truly depend on. But self-evident sensibilities, which are self-evidently obvious, like patience, for instance, this is something I can build. This I can use as a foundation to build myself, my more on. And now I have something that I can trust. I can absolutely trust has value and validity. And this is the key to the dictionary of power and why it is a dictionary of power. Those entries into the dictionary of power are those entries which are outside of belief, which give us value, which are easily, they self-evidently obvious and sensible, and we can build the entirety of our house of self, our structure, our castle of self. We can build it on truly solid foundations. Because what if you build yourself on a belief, and that belief turns out to not actually be a fact, no matter how much it was so to you? Well, then your whole thing starts to collapse, right? Because if that foundation is the whole thing. So this is why it is so important. And if you look at narcissists, we see this in action. Their entire system is built on the false belief of superiority and dominance, that they are a necessity and that they are a good. To the narcissist, superiority and dominance and status, these are a good. right? They see this as a good thing to them, but it's a belief, not an actuality. So they build everything and they have this entire complex structure based on this false foundation. And of course, it doesn't work and it ends up collapsing and it's very inefficient and effective and it's flawed and it's crappy. So it's very important to understand how impeccability is so key to the overallness, because if we don't have impeccability, we build a self that's hollow, that's flawed, that's fractured, that's insubstantial. It might be so temporarily, but when we find out that it's built on a flawed, hollow foundation, it all collapses.
Okay, so when you're I guess, and just to follow up and make sure that I'm understanding, I can, if I, with my conscience, with what's in my heart, coming from a place of love, I can try and work with somebody, or try and at least hold a conversation when necessary from that place of love and understanding. But then I will know, and I know I'm going to know, when I have exhausted all options and resources to the point where I just have to separate myself and say, I'm sorry, I just can't do this anymore.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's where we now, in what you've just said, you're combining the two aspects, or all three. You're saying, first of all, I've been thorough, I've been scrupulous, and I've been diligent. I've done everything that I can do, so my conscience is clear in that aspect, that I have not left things unattended. I've done whatever I could do. Secondly, I'm saying at this point, it's starting to go against my conscience to continue, because it is not the best use and an appropriate use of my energy. It's draining, it's sucking, it's soul sucking, it's debilitating, it's a waste of energy and time. So it's not the best use of my energy. So my conscience is clear. I don't need to even interact with this person. So my conscience is clear. I can let it go at any time. So when you combine all of those factors together, we get best use of energy, we get our conscience, and we get scrupulousness and thoroughness.
Okay. All right. Good.
I mean, scrupulousness doesn't just apply to actually the interaction. For instance, you come in contact with the BMN. If you're scrupulous about your energy management, you say right from the get-go, oh, wait a second, here's a BMN, a black hole psychology. They're just going to suck my energy. The only way to effectively deal with the black hole is to stay away from it, because any energy you give a black hole just makes it bigger. So to be scrupulous means I give that black hole not one single iota of energy. Zero. Nothing.
Yeah.
I don't even give it the energy of ignoring it or of hating it or of disliking it. That's energy too, right? I give it zero energy and I stay outside of the event horizon of that black hole. Because people think it's like, no contact, but you need to be a particular distance outside of a black hole. That's called the event horizon, because when you cross that event horizon, then they start to suck you in and pull you in slowly, and you have to spend all this energy to get out, but that suck force is greater than your energy, so it's a massive waste of energy. So you want to be outside of the sphere of influence of black holes and black hole psychologies and black hole personalities, otherwise known as BMNs. Yes,
Yeah.
Beena.
Okay. It's been really amazing. Yeah, because
Yes.
we covered three topics, like and a huge
Yes.
words, like, will and intent,
Yes.
impeccability. Right now, I had to go. But
Okay.
thank you so much, Lynnsey, for being here. Thank you
Yes.
so much for
Yes.
sharing, and Mary also. I
Bye,
was
Beena.
feeling like, and I was like feeling really touched when you share your personal things. Yeah.
Was
And
that you saying bye, Rachel? I didn't hear.
oh, and Rachel, how are you? I'm just waiting for my picture. I don't know where it is.
Round to it, I've got like 120 different projects.
Uh-huh. All right,
I'm just reminding you.
Beena's a magical timekeeper, and Beena's saying, okay, good time to wrap it up. But before we go, and before you go, is there any takeaways, any comments, anything anybody wants to share before we end?
I hope for more conversations just like this one.
Well,
Thanks for everybody for being a part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just want to end
Yep.
the Facebook Live, and then we can continue chatting on a regular thing. On just continue chatting. I'll be on Zoom all day long. So I'm going to end both Facebook and Zoom so that this recording stays in one recording, and then I'll start up Zoom right away. And if you guys want to continue chatting, we'll just connect right away again. So brilliant,
Okay.
brilliant. I
everybody.
love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Bye.
That was really magical. So yes, I love it. That's most awesome.
Okay.
And Stephanie, come join us on Zoom at some point. All right. So I'm
Oh,
gonna
yes.
end,
Yes.
end meeting. All right. Brilliant, brilliant. End meeting for all. And I'll start right up again.